Hi folks, it's Chef Kevin. Tonight I'm making beef stew. Stews are some of the oldest recipes around. They've been around for thousands of years. And what is a stew? Stew is usually a protein, for example fish, chicken, beef, that's slow cooked under a liquid. Now it doesn't necessarily even have to have protein, because one of the most famous stews is made without any protein at all. That would be ratatouille. Yes, that ratatouille. Okay, let's take a closer look. I got a lot of stuff here. I did a little research on Wikipedia today, and they listed 95 types of stews. And who even knows if that list is inclusive? But anyway, I have 1 3/4 pounds of beef chuck. Okay, this is not tender meat at all, and it becomes tender after slow cooking. There's a lot of connective tissue within the beef, and that's going to break down. Now, in a way that's sort of similar to the French chicken stew coq au vin, which means chicken cooked in wine, and usually use an old chicken, a chicken that you can't even eat other than putting it in a stew. I don't think you can find those today. Okay, so that's the protein, and like the coq au vin, I'm going to be using a combination of red wine, French of course, and homemade beef stock. These are the braising liquids. You should always use a stock, because the stock has flavor to it, water doesn't. Okay, the other components are mushrooms. These are crimini mushrooms. And I have some carrots. I have an onion here, a head of garlic, although I won't use that whole head. And as far as spices go, the regular salt and pepper, that's a given. A little vegetable oil to saute the beef in. Bay leaf. That adds a nice aroma. Not so much flavor, but a nice aroma. And speaking of aromatics, I have fennel seed and cumin seeds. Now, I don't know what recipe calls for that, but out of the 95 stews, it's probably in one of them. But I like these. Again, it makes it smell nice. It's an aromatic. And the other item I have is tarragon vinegar. This adds a nice little bite and a good amount of flavor. If you're not familiar with tarragon, it's more on the licorice side, but it goes well with stews. Okay, that's the ingredients, so watch how I put it together. Okay, I have a very large saute pan here. A little vegetable oil, I'm heating it up. I just want to make this in one batch. If I was to use a smaller pan, I would have to do this in 2 batches so that the meat is not the pan is not overcrowded. I'm going to let that heat up just a little bit more. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and cut up my onions. Now, this is a rustic dish, and you don't have to spend time doing fancy cuts. In fact, you want to leave them large. You want to leave the pieces large, because if you were to cut them too small, they would just shrink away by the end of the cooking cycle, and you wouldn't even see an onion. It would just shrink down so much. Okay, this pan is getting nice and hot. This is 1.5 pounds of chuck. I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle a little all-purpose flour on it. And what this does is it helps makes the gravy, makes it nice and thick. And as the flour cooks off, you get that nutty taste that you usually get from flour. Now I bought these pre-cut, these pieces of beef. You can do that, or you can just get a chuck roast and do the same thing. Okay, what I'm going to do is just get these nice and brown. Today, here in New York City, it's actually 24 degrees right now, and we just got hit with another 6 inches of snow. So this is the ultimate comfort food right now, folks. Okay, so as you can see, the chunks of meat have become nice and brown. And take this off the heat. Keep that aside. Same bowl, a little more oil. A few tablespoons anyway. Gonna add my onions. A little salt and pepper on that. Now I'm going to let these cook down until they get nice and brown. This way they become really nice and sweet. It's probably going to take about 7 to 8 minutes. Okay, these onions are nice and browned up, nice and sweet. Going to put those on top of the beef. Okay, I had a little problem. I cut into the garlic, and if you can see, it's green, it's germinated. So chances are it's bitter. I'm not going to use it. I happen to have some minced garlic here. This is dehydrated minced garlic. Usually I cook the garlic with the onions, but I didn't want to throw this in because I thought that may burn, and burnt garlic is quite disgusting. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is get my Dutch oven set up. Okay, before I break out the Dutch oven, I want to deglaze this pan. This has a lot of bits and pieces in it from frying the onions and frying the beef, or sauteing I should say. So I'm just going to take a little beef broth. Now this will loosen the fond, F-O-N-D. That is the substance that is left behind from the sauteing. I'm going to put that on top of the meat. Okay. My Dutch oven. Okay, now here's something that you don't see too often. What I'm going to do is to dry roast the spices. There's nothing in that pan at all. I have some cumin seeds. I just love the way that smells. I'm going to put about a teaspoon in there. I'm going to put some fennel seed. This just smells so good. About a teaspoonful as well. Going to put in a couple of bay leaves. Okay, now what this is going to do is bring out the full flavor of the seeds. This is dry roasting. They're going to start popping and smoking within a couple of minutes, and then I'll add the rest of the ingredients. Okay, I don't know if you can see it, but the seeds are starting to smoke. They're popping. You probably can't hear that because I got the blower on. I'm going to go ahead and put the meat and onions in there. Going to add my garlic, granulated garlic. Not too much. Then my baby onions, my baby carrots. I sliced them at an angle. It doesn't make them taste any better, but it makes it look a little bit more interesting anyway. I hope so. Mushrooms in. Now this is all going to melt down, so it may look like a lot at this point, but it's really not. We is cooking away, folks. 2 cups organic beef broth. I'm going to go ahead and add 3 ounces of tomato paste. Tomato paste is basically concentrated tomato sauce, and this adds another level of flavor. Let's not forget the paprika. I'm going to give that a tablespoon. I want this hot and spicy. This is a very very famous Hungarian hot paprika. Two cups of Bordeaux French red wine. So I'm keeping with the French theme here. Now, whatever you do, do not use the cheap-ass cooking wine. I don't even know if that is a wine, but it's awful. It's inexpensive, but it's awful. Don't use it. Okay, everything is covered. I'm going to go ahead and add just a little more black pepper. I don't want to add any more salt. Maybe later when I taste it, I may add some more salt. Okay, I'm going to cook this covered in my Staub Dutch oven. Now, this is what they're classically used for, stews. And on the bottom of the cover, this is a number 24. That's actually the diameter, 24 centimeters, which is 9 3/8 inches. And they have these little flavor spikes, and the steam and flavoring are supposed to condense on the dots and then drop back in. Whether it really works or not, I'm not quite sure, but all I know is the Staubs do a great job on this. So I'm going to bring this to a simmer, and then simmer it for an hour and a half, and then I'll check it, see if it's tender or not. They usually take at least 2 hours. I just realized I forgot an ingredient, but it's no big difference, no big deal. I'm going to add some tarragon vinegar. Traditionally, vinegar is used in a stew just to give it some acidity, and I really like the taste of the tarragon. That was probably only 2 tablespoons. It's very potent stuff. Okay, the other thing that I really did forget, but I just realized, I have some thyme in my refrigerator, so I'm going to pull off the leaves. Thyme will go so great with this. No time like the right time. Okay, it's been an hour and a half at a simmer, so let's take a look here. Let me give it a little taste here. That is really good. The only thing I would like is a little thicker. consistency. Now, what's the difference between a stew and a soup? Okay, a stew has less liquid, so it's kind of liquidy. So I'm going to cook it uncovered for 30 more minutes, and that will reduce the stew so it makes it a little thicker. And then at the final few minutes I'm going to add some fresh parsley, give it a nice little fresh taste. And you always want to add the parsley at the very end of the meal, at the end of the cooking cycle, because otherwise it just becomes mushy. Okay, it's been 2 hours and 15 minutes. Shut that off. Really liking the consistency. I'm going to take a piece of beef out onto the cutting board. Piece of mushroom out. And a carrot. Go ahead now. That was my dog trying to get my food. Okay, let's take a look at this. They always know when to come by. Huh? Timing is everything. You'll get your food later, don't worry about you. Okay. Let's take a look at this here, folks. Been a lot of work. Okay, here's a piece of onion. Onion is nice and sweet, thoroughly cooked. Carrot. Okay, the carrot is a little firm, but actually that's the way I like it. I don't like the vegetables to be overly soggy. It's al dente. Mushroom. Mushroom is perfect. Has a little chew to it. The beef. Very tender to the fork. That's very good. Nice and tender, the way it should be. Okay, the only thing left to do is to plate it. So here you go, folks. Your beef stew is served. This is rustic peasant food, so I'm not going to try to make it look too fancy. I have a little parsley here. And that's it. Hope you're enjoying my cooking shows. If you like my videos, if you like me, then subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Make me feel good.